welcome to BID. Today we are wrapping up the genera with some of the oddball Western ones, I think. We will note that there are a few that we don't have samples of, specimens of, that we're not going to be able to address at this time, but maybe we will be able to return to. Next week we will have class, and it'll be the time to start on specific species. And we plan to start with the green bees, maybe Agapostamon to be determined, but I'm pretty sure that's where we're starting. And thank you everybody who's attending for coming on last minute. I will this week actually be sending out a follow-up since we're wrapping up this, let's say, this season of class. You know, this our first big landmark with our updated master genus cheat sheet, which has been revised per suggestions that we've had in class. And I think we're also adding Lithodopsis, which wasn't on there, and other things. And I'll send out links for the Quizlet and things like that we've also added to by virtue of your feedback and participation. So we always want to thank you for that. I think Sam has something to speak about. Off to you, Sam.
Right, I do, and I'm going to swap my screen. So yes, we're ending the genera for now, but as we accumulate some of these other genera, when we get the national collection out here, or we find one somewhere else, we will talk about that, but probably in the context of species level identification anyway. So I did want to, I'm going to share my screen, talk about guide development. And so here is the bee genera guide that you should be able to see on your screens now. And you're familiar with it because we go through this periodically. And you can see up here guide to genera of various categories, including Great Britain and Ireland, and Mexico, and so forth. So just as an example of how guide development can occur incrementally, we've been in discussion and dialogue with a set of Germans about expanding the guide to include the German genera. So a set of those genera are already present. So probably 60, 75% are already in this guide, but the rest are not. So we just corresponded with them today and added a new character so that they could begin to play with the guide and just look at German characters and German for the German genera that exist without having to worry about completing the guide or messing up everyone else using it. So you won't see it here because that would give the impression perhaps that this is a complete guide to the genera of Germany. But if you go to the bottom, you will see something that I added just a few minutes ago. It says draft character for German genera. Skip this character if not working on German bees. This sort of thing can be done for any region. So for example, if you are in a state that you feel you would like to expand any of the guides for, you can work with us and we'll either set this up directly or we'll give you the passwords to do it yourself. You can develop a draft set of species and score them and work with them that's will not impact the rest of the guide. And if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, we can get rid of it at the same time. But so for example, right now, if you see 36 genera are in the guide already for Germany and 126 are not. And it doesn't kludge up the system because if you're working on the bees of Germany, you just click on that and now you have the subset of bees on the left that are German, and you continue to use the guide however you like to identify those. So we can do that for any country in the case of the genera, or we can expand any state or province to include additions, but leave them as drafts so that, again, you can work out slowly the scorings and test the capabilities of your additions. So I mention that so that we encourage people to not think of this as just something we do, but that we do and have done in collaboration. Okay, now we will jump to the microscope and we will look at Xenoglossa. So we'll tackle Xenoglossa first. These are bees throughout North America. We have them in the east, although Xenoglossa are primarily southern. So I'm not sure if they have been recorded, probably in New Jersey, but not much above Maryland. We've only have a handful of records. In some people's books, but not in the master list that we use, which is put together by Jenna Asher. Xenoglossa would be considered a Eucera now, but we try to maintain a stable taxonomy by using John's lists. We're often behind him, but right now, currently, we are still calling Xenoglossa Xenoglossa, not Eucera. So the character, one of the characters, and we'll look at the genus cheat sheets here in a second, is something I want to show here, and I have already up on the screen, which is the infamous basal tooth on the mandible. A great character, except when the mandibles are closed, which is almost all the time. So let me point out the tooth. So it's actually a really small bump-like tooth. This is actually a big one within the genus. As far as I've found, they are always there. But if this mandible were closed, then that is invisible and not a useful character. So we have other ways of telling them, which we're going to get into. But let's jump to the cheat sheet and look at Xenoglossa here for a bit. Let me find Xenoglossa. And as usual, I will pitch that if someone would like to expand the cheat sheet, Genera cheat sheet, and incur our favor, they should, to Western groups. Okay, so are we looking at a male or a female? That is a male. So we'll start with the male, which is what we're looking at. So flagellar segments, first flagellar segment lengths compared to second is equal or longer, usually longer. Tegula is not pinched or narrowed or with a concave section like in Melisodes, so it's bean-shaped or roughly bean-shaped or oval. And I have flagellar second in there 2 times, but antennae are generally short compared to Eucerine. So if you think about it, a lot of Eucera species, in the strict sense of the old days of what Eucera is, those males have antennae that go way back beyond the tegula, very similar to other longhorn bees like Melisodes and Sphaestra. These, as you'll see on this male, have basically female-looking antennae. An important one, though, is that the base of the mandibles, which we were just looking at, does have a tooth, not useful when closed, but what it does have that the other possible confusing species like Pepinapis, I'll put in a caveat, maybe only in the east, but I believe we've done this such that it should be good for all genera throughout their ranges. It has yellow, a big patch of yellow at the base of the mandibles. And in addition to that obscure tooth. So let's see what we can find on the specimen in this male. This is Xenoglossa strenua, the most common eastern Xenoglossa. All of these are basically pumpkin and squash specialists. What would that be? What's the genus? Someone can say. Peepo, is that right? I'm not sure. Anyway, there's a tooth again. Here's the wide amount of yellow on the front. I'm going to dial down the magnification and change the focus, and now you can see the antennae. Even though this is a male, you'll see that this is at quite a short, I mean, in other circumstances, other than a short scape, which is often characteristic of males, this is actually quite a short antennae compared to the Usera, which is going to sweep back almost to the scutellum. So that's to be noted and is a vibe for this group. There, the yellow is very prominent. And if we look here again, we will look at the length of F1, if I can get a good view of it. F1 compared to F2. So it's equal or longer, often about 1.5 times as long. And we'll shift the magnification up. And, oops, try not to bump it.
We got squashes, the cucurbita.
Cucurbita would be the proper group of squash-like things that these bees go to.
See?
Okay. Here's F1. So that's, you can't see the scape. It's recessed below the picture here now. There's the pedicel, so the ball joint. Here's F1. Here's F2. And you can see F1 is clearly longer than F2, about at least 1.5, probably longer in that particular case. If we look back here on the tegula, move that down. Been in the garden working a lot, so ignore my fingers. And we look at the, or hopefully we can look at the tegula here. It should be basically oval. If not, maybe my bean comment was some relevance, but I believe it's, yeah, very clear. So, I mean, clear as in transparent. There's the tegula right there. And so it doesn't narrow towards the tip, nor does it, interestingly, look like it has a great degree of hair on it, which often Melisodes and Sphaestra do. So we'll look at it from a different direction here. Very transparent. So a bit difficult to see completely. But roughly you can see the shape somewhere in here. And I believe this is the, I think squash have very large pollen grains. So look at the size of those bad boys. I'm going to say that's squash on it. The strenua often, very interestingly, looks a lot like, in terms of its abdomen, some of its sister genera. So this vibe of overall would be, oh, maybe I'm looking at Pepinapis. Oh, maybe I'm looking at Usera hemata. So you have to look at these details, and I do too still, to make sure that I'm looking at the right one. So those are the characters for the male. Let me pull a female here. Very long tongues. And the female is going to be quite similar. It's going to have, this is a very old and almost therefore dirty specimen. Here I just want to show the tiny, this is Kanzensis, I think. Wait, is it? No, it's Strenua again, but this is a female. We'll look for our little friend, and there it is. So we do have an open mandible, but again, this inner basal tooth, often, even when it's open, you have to do some moving around to see that tooth. And but it is there, And if we look at the base of the mandible, here's again a large yellow patch, which helps us with the ID for this group. And you can see from the antennae, they're basically the same.
Away, could I get a screenshot of that basal tooth?
Oh, that tooth?
Yes.
Okay. I think we got some good backlighting there. Let me try and slide something white underneath there.
I think I got a good one.
Did you get one? How about that one?
Oh, delightful.
Okay, got it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yellow at the base. Take a look at the antennae, and you'll see they're basically the same size and shape as the males, which is pretty unique for a supposed longhorn bee. So we'll go to the cheat sheet and go to there we go. Oh, this is the female. Tooth near the base of mandibles, yellow, as is the clypeus. Scape is short and somewhat urn-shaped. We'll take a look for that. Scopal hairs, sparse, unbranched, and is that, yeah. And I'm looking at the wrong one again. Scopal hairs, sparse and unbranched. It is larger than a honeybee, and vertex flattened or, oh no, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong one. Back to here, it only goes down to, let me just make sure, sorry. So, scopal hairs, relatively sparse and unbranched, very similar to Pepinapis, and Pepinapis, though, has that odd, often difficult to see set of inner, denser hairs, almost like a foot brush that you would have outside your house level, that is beneath the scopal hairs. This does not have that, so seeing something that it does not have is difficult, but let me just put the microscope on to the hairs, and sorry, very dirty specimen. That's what you get when it's 100 years old. These hairs, unlike other Eucera and other species, are, first of all, there's no branches in there, are pretty loose and open. And you can see the 100-year-old pumpkin pollen on that. So we're going to look for the urn-shape scapes. This is not something that I had recalled from looking at these things or were aware of. So yeah, so the antennae are interesting in this group because they're not conforming to what would be normal. So in this female, normally they have a much longer scape. It's long and narrow compared to the male, but it's about the same size. And you can see this urn shape aspect to it, which, you know, it widens out before the pedicel instead of being roughly about the same dimensions as the flagellar segments. So, Xenoglossa.
And we have a question. Is the clear tegula a distinguishing diagnostic character for Xenoglossa?
So what that's doing is separating Xenoglossa out. Let's take a look at the female here. Xenoglossa out from the Melisodes. I don't know why I didn't have that in the female. Is there any, well, I guess the basal tooth theoretically is separating it from Melisodes. I think I'll add in, Claire, if you can remind me, I'll add in that the tegula, in this case, there's quite a bit of hair around it, so we can't see that it's just an oval. Well, you kind of can. So here's the oval shape. Melisodes, both males and females, but again, it's usually the females that we use the character in. On this side, starting at this point, instead of it being rounded out, is going to be concave and this elongated out and then around and back. So people sometimes call that D-shaped, but it's a basically not a simple oval. It is in this group, as it is in all the other Eucera-related genera, if that makes sense. But we should add that explicitly because that would, without having to use the tooth, again, which is often not visible, separate it from Melisodes in a cheat sheet sort of way. All right, now wrapping things up here. Oh, there's some more. All right, we probably don't need to see any more. I have better specimens selected out elsewhere. So let's look at Paratetrapedia. We are going to, I believe Paratetrapedia occurs within the United States, but we can determine that by going to the global mapper and typing in Paratetrapedia. I'm going to put an underscore after it. That means that it's going to show me all the individual species too. And
can I interrupt real quick before we go too deeply into Paratetrapedia?
Yep.
We have a question. What other flowering plants would these bees maybe visit besides squash and pumpkin?
So I don't know of Xenoglossa, but for example, in my garden I have Ipomaea pandurata, which is a native, very large morning glory. Cimolobus is a specialist on it. And early one, which I would love to have found in my garden, but early one morning I was like at dawn, before dawn, I was looking at the blossoms, and there were big bees going in and out. I'm going, holy moly, that could be Cimolobus, but it was actually male Papinapis. So my guess is that the Xenoglossa do similar things, is that they're going to nectar on a variety of plants. The females, you could, well, we can take a little side trip here. So if you go to Discover Life and go to, let's just look up Xenoglossa strenua. And go to its page. They all have pages, whether there's something there or not, hard to say. And if you scroll down far enough, you will see there's the descriptions based on whatever material we can get a hold of. But down here is information about collections. So it's showing the plants that were on a label of a specimen saying that that specimen was collected on that particular plant. So here you can see mostly cucurbita here on the upper part, but now we're into some other, well, there's cucurbit, that's withheld. That's, I think, the Logan Lab. I'm not sure why it's withheld. And then Propicidia, what is that? Purple flower devil's claw, interesting. So you could do some investigating on your own and probably, oh, well, we can go back and see what, oops, did not like that, but we're back. Flower records, cucurbita, Robertson, 29 records. This is from Mitchell, also on Ipomaea. Okay, there you go. And Asclepius, or Asclepius. Okay, so it looks like they are pretty tied to cucurbita, but that for a drink they might wander elsewhere. If anyone else has observations, let us know, even if it's for Papinapis, which is pretty close and probably similar patterns occur. If we go back to our map of Tetrapedia, we can see there's quite a few species, almost all of them, well, all of them Western Hemisphere, mostly tropical, or at least south of the border, with one from the bee lab And this is always an investigation to see where they go. Oh, it's Wilson and Messenger, the book authors, and Utah. So they collected one in Utah. So it means between Mexico and Utah, there's probably others. A lot of bees are out there that we haven't recorded for wide stretches. We often find, not often, but we have numbers of records of bees showing up several states apart from current records. That's where you guys come in. Okay, so Paratetrapedia, possible to get out west. And if we go back, we're going to go now to the Bee Genera guide. We're going to hit restart, and because we have the German species over there, and I'm just going to go down and click search, which will refresh that part. And you know, this pop-up thing, I don't know if people know, if you click that, it will just pop up without erasing what you've done, the information for the species in a separate window. So we know, we can say this was in Mexico, I think. So let's just call it Mexico. Click Mexico. Okay. And skip the states because we're in Mexico. We don't know the Mexican state either, so that's fine. We don't know these taxonomic shortcuts at this point, but as we get more experience, we can often narrow things down in that way. Thorax, primary color is brownish, so it's not the greens. With markings, in this case, yes. Let's take a look at this specimen for a second before we get too far into clicking on things. So there's a almost Nobata-esque view of this. This is a male, and you can see it's strongly marked.
Sam, did you tell us the species? I was looking for.
I did not. I did not. Lineata.
Thanks.
And it's from Bolivia. This is a shame that the National Museum's collection is not databased, because there's so many of these cool things in there. Okay, and we take a look at, so even though this is a male, it's quite hairy. And this points out this problem that unless you know the group, you might just say, oh, look, there's a bunch of scopal hairs, so it's a female. But if you count the antennal segments, you'll find, which I did earlier because I was like, that looked like a female. And here, if we look closer, that might be genitalia coming out there, but certainly not a sting. And you'll realize that this is a male and you can't use female characters because those are actually not scopal hairs in this particular case. But interesting legs, not a lot of hair on the rest of the body, yellow markings. So let's go back to the guide here. And the no sticking out axillas, I believe it's 3, but we're going to check that. So if we look at the wing, pull this back here, and we're getting more sophisticated in our abilities to quickly assess the number of submarginals, so we don't have to spend so much time on there, but you can see the 3 there. As a class, you are submarginally experts. So as we suspected 3, let's click this, and we're down to 26. We see that the vein, the basal vein here is not arched. So I get rid of few of the Halictidae. I looked earlier and there is a toe pad present. Again, we've seen that, won't do it again. Paratetrapedia, just a double check of my work, because sometimes I go a little too fast, is present. I'm going to get my ruler from my other microscope. Thank you, Craig, for lending your microscope. And I'm going to hold it up to the screen so because I can see through it, and I'm going to say we are at the 7 to 8 millimeter range, and we're down to 17. And oh, sorry, that was a male. So 7 to 8, probably do something similar. But see, the fact that I haven't hit simplify means that I can click things on, click things off, and the guide is still working. Oh, and we're not going to play with the German character because it says it's a draft. So now we'll hit simplify with our 18 remaining. And we can change however we like what's presented on that first page too. So these are shortcuts, useful, but we don't know them. Antenna length. So if we go to our specimen, we will see that the antenna length is not that long, but depending on how we look at it.
Sam, while you're on the antenna, I got an email question. You said something about the antenna number earlier being obscure. Can you mention that again?
So the females have 12 total segments. That would include the scape and the pedicel, and males have 13 with, I believe, only one exception, and that's Holcoposides, where both the male and female have 12. And I think that's mentioned. So if that's sufficient, I'll move on, but if we need clarity, then I'm happy to answer questions. Number of teeth on the mandible. So let's see if we can move in here. We're seeing the clypeus. We're not seeing the teeth area of mandibles. Oh, was that a female or a male? Yeah. So again, not appropriate because it's a male. Non-metallic white, yellow markings. Yes. To be careful of some of these gender ones. And so we're down to 12. We might as well hit simplify again. Recreate the guide, eliminate things we don't need to see. Female, female, female. No, no, no. Thorax. So here it talks about the level of convexity in the scutellum. Let's see what we can see here. And it does not appear to be unusually convex. So to orient you, here's the axilla following the line of the scutellum. Here's the scutellum. Let's look at this definition better. Less strongly convex, posterior third at an angle of 110 degrees or more to the front part. That seems to be the case. Scutum and scutellum not by tuberculate, metanotum, and base of propodium often near horizontal. Hard to say in this picture. So if we, I'm not sure. So this seems to be to drop off quite a bit there. So I'm not sure on this one, and I'm not going to spend a whole much more time, but I'm going to just take a peek. What if I hit that? Paratetrapedia is indeed left in there. And then if I do 9, it's also left in there. So similar to my sense of ambiguity is the ambiguity that the guide says we don't really know either. Apis versus male and Meliponi. So Meliponii. So these are the stingless bees. Hairs without hairs. Marginal cell incomplete or weakened. So I think if we go back, we'll see that it's not the Meliponi because the marginal cell is not weakened. I don't know that we need to look at that. We're down to 5, so I'm going to hit simplify again. So as you get more and more familiar, you can just start making jumps. You may go take a look at these genera and say, oh, well, I know it's not these, so I'm going to click them off. Or I know it's Paratetrapedia because I know it's not these others. If you knew that. So as you advance, you can move faster and faster. And ultimately, again, you memorize the characteristics for each of the genera and only rarely have to come back to the genera guide. All right, so did we, I think we didn't hit simplify. So here's this rear profile thing. Again, we know that its Paratetrapedia is in both, so we're not going to bother. So foreleg, Basotar's presence and location of a dense linear brush of hairs. So let's take a look at that. We're getting into more detailed information. And that's going to always be more time consuming. I'm going to take this down, move this in. We're in places that I have not been before, or at least not in a long time. So here is rear, mid, fore, basotarsus here, tibia. This is the inner part. Is that the line they're talking about right there? Let's see. Let's move in and see. So here is basically bare, and there is a line of hairs there. Theoretically, there's also a line of hairs on that. Let's go back now. Okay. It says basotarsus, presence and location of a dense linear brush of hairs. Okay, so far so good, which appears thickened such as to their comb-like. Did look like that. Obvious. Note that a fringe of long, obviously separated hairs is not considered a comb here. That a fringe of long, obviously separate. I'm not. That's ambiguous to me. But okay. So absent, although hairs are almost nearly always present, they are not arrayed in a line such that they line up like a comb of unusually thick hairs. Present. All right. Let's see if this is. You can see one. And the others have it absent. So if we're right, there it is, Paratetrapedia. We can then go to the Paratetrapedia page, see if there's anything of interest. You see some pictures that look like Paratetrapedia to us. We have links to the species. Usually there's not too much on the genus page for most species.
Sam, can you go back to the microscope so I can get a picture of that linear thing on the, yeah.
All right. Everyone should find this species now. It's pretty distinctive looking in general. Got it?
Sorry, I got it.
Okay. All right. So I'll show you a female, which I have here, but I believe that the ID string is similar. I think this is a separate species. It certainly looks different. Look at all those mites on the T1. Sometimes those are phoric, I believe it's called, where they're helpful mites, and other times it's like you don't want them. Usually the mites that bees like are pocketed in the T1 part of the abdomen. It seems like a place that they hang. So let's see if we can find that fringe in the rear basotarsus of this female, and we'll also take a look at the female character.
Sam, is the comb the long hairs or the short ones?
It was the longer pair, I believe. All right, so we'll go back to that character. So this is a female. This is the basotarsus. I thought that both the females and the males, because it didn't say differentiate, had this character. The character should be right through there. So I believe this is it. This is the character. It's both light there and dark there. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer. Just showing some of the subtleties here where words are useful. So this is what I believe they call this comb. So sticking off to the side, there's stiff hairs. Are those the hairs too, or is there just that part? Again, not a species I've spent any real time on. Let's look from the...
Can we return to the guide? We're wondering if it's supposed to be on the forelegs.
Was it the foreleg or the rear leg? I thought it was rear, but that would make a difference. Okay, so let's see if we can get back to that. Document expired. Oops. I don't like to go back. I might have to, let's go to...
this is a good chance to do a restart and, yeah, or do that.
Redo
other
has
that
and
we have.
Find, let's see, comb, the word comb. Foreleg, oh, you're right. Okay, well, we were making up stories because I'm going to pull the male back in too, because it is the foreleg basotarsus, not the hind leg. Yes. All right, so we're going back. So people are actually paying attention, Claire. That's good.
I is a great student. We met in
Claire and I have been talking, and Claire may take the lead in this of creating a quiz for people to take. Now that we've finished the Genera guide. Okay, so these are the forelegs. Ooh, I might be able to just see it there. You bend this back. Oh, that might be just the tibia. We have some problems with viewing. To take off this one piece of paper. Let's see if this shows.
Maybe upside down?
I think, is it the, did it say the inner part? That's what so the inner part is sort of cupped up here. We can get the male from the other side too. There is no good, well, let's see what happens when we turn it upside down. So here is the forelegs. I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. Let's go back for a moment to that male. And I have another specimen over here too that may be better. I'm going to take the bottom off of that. This goes with the other one to get my labels in order. All right, trying to get a shot here. All right, that appears to be the outer. Is it the outer or the inner part of the front basotarsus? Let's zoom in anyway. So is that the comb?
Sam, in the guide, it reads exactly, present, located along the inner and or rear edge of the, oh, sorry. Yeah. Wait, hold on. Let me figure this out. Sorry, cancel.
Okay. This is where just looking at it with your fingers is so advantageous. Okay. Basotarsus. I can't quite tell if that is the inner or the outer side of it. But, oops, sorry for that phone. These would apparently be the comb-like hairs along the edges. There's nothing really going on in the middle. So similar to what we saw on the hind, but I guess more accentuated. I have another specimen too, so let me grab that one.
Okay, while you're doing that, I did pull it up. So in that, let's say couplet, even though there's three, the one that populates for Paratetrapedia says, present, located along the inner and or rear edge of the basotarsus and running along its length. Often, but not always, the brush is somewhat weakly formed and light may be visible through it.
Okay.
One that does not take it, that I think is, I'm not sure I would use this one. If you click the following, it takes you to Tetrapedia, not Paratetrapedia. Present, located on the outer front edge of the basotarsus and running along its length. The comb is extremely dense and almost always appears to be made of integument rather than dense hairs. If you have any Tetrapedia nearby, it might be helpful to do a compare and contrast.
I don't. So when we were looking at that one character, it did take out Paratetrapedia.
Yes, the one that acknowledges Paratetrapedia is that the brush is somewhat weakly formed and light may be visible.
All right, we may have to come back and visit this, or we'll spend all day, because I did not look that particular one. There may be other means. Who is trying to get in touch with me? 907 from Alaska. So that's the rear leg again. Yeah. So there's the front. Yeah, it's all jump. That's not the front. That's the mid. All right, I'm gonna punt on that one and say needs more investigation and work, because I'm not quite seeing it, or at least not seeing it easily, and nor do I think I have a specimen that is going to allow us to see that. And we have 10 minutes left. We'll just do a quick run through this very last, also westerns, and it's going to be mostly tropical. This one is also from Bolivia. In that case of people are, Alaska is calling me Anthodiosites, and we will spin this down. All right, I'm just going to show it. I don't know that we have time to walk through the guild, through the guide on this one. And since I don't really know this group well, I'm not sure I'm going to be teaching you very much of anything. But next week, we'll get into the stuff that people spend a lot of time on, which is, isn't that a pretty bee? Is the Agapostemon. And looking at males in particular, differentiating the, well, actually all of them. In some of the females, some of the solid green ones, for example, Splendens versus Texanus versus Sericius, can be tricky. And then also looking at the males, looking at the sternal characteristics can be tricky too. So I guess I'll leave it like that, Claire, and then ask if there's any questions, and come back at some point to some of these Western ones again, I would suppose. I'm also, if people have other genera guides, I'm going to put a call out to the list through Claire that she has, but also through the bee monitoring listserv and the pollinator L listserv, a request for people who have or would like to talk about other online or even PDF available guides to the genera, and have a group discussion of their capabilities and how they're useful, and let people talk about them, because there's several others out there from Canada. There's the old Michener one, and it would be good to have people be aware of what else is out there.
So I do have a couple of questions. One, we just need a quick reminder of what is on the screen right now.
Oh, Anthodiocetes, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it exactly right, so we can look up this is Western, but we can go to I don't know if they get into the US at all. Oh my gosh, there's none. Have I spelled it right? A-N-T-H-O-D-O. Oh. Oh, there's no Y. Diocetes, maybe. Poof. Okay. There is the northernmost one, but it's still in Chihuahua. So it looks like there's none in the US. And let's add a underscore. How many species are there? Quite a few. You can see here, almost all of them are South American, it looks like. Very beautiful. I think we have a couple examples up on our Flickr site for that group.
Okay, and Nancy has also posted a link in the chat for some Tetrapedia pictures. Might have some pictures of those hind legs.
Right.
We are not going to go into the species levels now, but that's what Sam's saying next week. That's what we're going to get a start on. Denny Johnson created a very nice PDF of some of the agapostemons that he has given permission to share widely. So in a follow-up email from this week, I'm going to send information about the wrap-up of this genus series and a few resources for as we move forward with the species.
And we can also see if we can get Denny to be on that
yeah.
call.
Any species levels experts we should recruit.
Yeah, we'll move into that too.
Let me pull this up. I had another email question. Can we remind the group what microscope we're using for the sessions? Perhaps not as good as a regular dissecting scope, but since it's digital, wondered if it's the portable kind.
Are we talking about the one I'm using right now?
Yeah, the one that we're using from Craig.
Yeah. So it's an Olympus SC61. I have a similar microscope that I use. It's not an Olympus, but it's in that same ilk, which is SC60, and just a slightly earlier version of it. And that's my main microscope, the other one. And it's got, though, and I think maybe that's why it's a 61, not a 60, it's got a port here. Let's see if we can see that. I'm going to unshare my screen and you can look at it. and turn that off. And am I sharing or not sharing the screen right now?
You are not sharing. We see your face.
Okay, so I'm turning this so that you can see here. This is the microscope. This is the widget, which is a Nikon widget with some relatively expensive software associated with it, which does all kinds of crazy things, like has measurement tools and has a person that helps set it up and is on call that we had to use at the beginning because it was pretty complicated. And yeah, and so it is porting live to my laptop and then out through the internet. Is that does that answer the question?
I think it does, but I would also like to share when I've taken pictures for the guys that aren't screenshots from this class, what I use is just an adapter for my regular scope. These are available on Amazon for $50 or less, and my iPhone 11, and those get pretty good things. And then I do some photo editing in, you know, just a general application to sharpen things up. So that's another, if you want to take photos, a tool to use. I've also used it pretty successfully to record short videos.
Does it work on Android?
Yeah, I would assume so. It's just a mount for, I don't know if it'll work when I have my case on, but it's just a mount. It attaches, thus your phone goes in here. You move it, you know, however you need to line it up.
And it's specifically for microscopes, this thing?
Yeah. I think they make ones for binoculars and things like that as well, but this one's a specifically scope. I'll put a link in the follow-ups, and I have found it very useful.
All right.
Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, well, send me emails if there's anything that you need to have included for, you know, for our wrap up on this series before we move into species. We're also taking requests. We're going to start with these green bees, and then we have bombus on point for after that, but we can keep moving. I think maybe Saratina, since I'm working on that guide, I've put it on the back burner, but I have a couple more pictures to take. Maybe that could be at the third group we go through, but let us know what you need.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
We have Xenoglossa as a request.
Yeah. We will get to that one, but maybe that's not the first thing to tackle. There's so many species.
Okay,
how many?
But maybe we could do like a subgenera day for just some general sorting.
Oh, for the Xenoglossa?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can convince Jason to do that with us.
That would be cool. A couple days. I know, a death trap. We also have a question on the non-native bees as an inclusion. But at this point, I'm going to cease recording because I have a lot. So I'm gonna cease recording, and we're gonna email about the rest of these conversations.
Cool. Thanks, Claire. I'm gonna call Alaska.